In this video, I wanted to talk about the ThieAudio Hype2. This is a $299 earbud, in-ear monitor, and the way audio is a lot of this stuff is not worth more than like $50, $100. It's just a plastic shell with a couple of drivers in it, and a company trying to tune it to sound a particular way. And what typically happens is the treble is lumpy and fatiguing, and there's tonality in the bass and the mids that may be to your liking or not. And that's about it. I mean, just imagine, that's all it is some people, tinkering around with drivers in a earbud shell, trying to achieve a particular sound. And the majority of the time it turns into a lumpy, funky, fatiguing, badly tuned piece of crap. And is the ThieAudio Hype2 any good? And to a degree, it's okay. But I was listening to it today, and I found it not very musical, kind of fatiguing. Like, again, there's we're going to look at the frequency response again on this thing, but I think the 200 hertz mud scoop that they glamorize is all hype, honestly, and I think it should be warmer and fuller in the mid bass, which sounds a lot more pleasant, a lot less anemic and wrong and bad, surprisingly. And then again, the treble, there's some lumps and cuts in the treble on this thing that take away from the smoothness, the transparency, the clean, sound, and it kind of just gives you this fatiguing, lumpy, pokey, ride when you're listening to music and audio. That yesterday I kind of, I only used it for 30 minutes. I was distracted. I was making a open-minded devil's advocate review of this thing, and I kind of mentioned that there's this lump at 5K that I can hear, that it has this kind of gimmicky enthusiast 200 hertz mud cut that Harman keeps pushing. In my opinion, they probably do it so they can keep a job. Otherwise, what else are they going to offer? And then pushing some weird sound signature that hypothetically, theoretically could be good. It's subjective, right? Or something. How else are they going to buy their Tesla, cars and stuff, if they're not trying to make themselves look useful. So the ThieAudio, I do not find it musical. I find it a bit fatiguing in the high frequencies. That's very distracting, because it's not harsh treble or anything. It's just the high frequencies. There's one or two lumps that kind of poke out at you the whole time you're listening to it. And then the lack of mid bass warmth, it just kind of really, it just makes music unfun. There's no body to the sound. It feels like it's sucked out at 200 hertz. So this whole 200 hertz mud scoop thing, yeah, it adds clarity because you can't hear those frequencies, but I think you're supposed to hear those frequencies. So yeah, I am just to be honest with you. And again, we're gonna look at the frequency response for this thing. Again, I really love this thing. This bad boy right here. This is the EM6L Phoenix. Now this thing is musical. It's full-bodied. It's smooth. It has no fatiguing lumps in the high frequencies. It's really transparent. It's really good. In comparison, this thing just blows the Hype2 out of the water. This thing is $100. This ThieAudio, $300. And there's more to talk about as well. The EM6L earbuds are small. They're easy to put in. They're comfortable. They're, they fit. They're not oversized. They're not anything special. You put them in your ears, they feel good, And then when we go to the ThieAudio Hype2, these things are big, they're bulky. I shove them in my ears, and honestly, they're a bit fatiguing. They're too big. They stick out aesthetically. They kind of stick out in a bad way. They're too big, and they kind of hurt my ears a little bit. They're overpriced. They're oversized. I mean, let's look. They got this goofy color on them that probably makes them worth an additional $100. And so we can compare the two. I don't know if you can see the size difference. Maybe not, maybe. But you can see it's just like shaped on this one quite a bit different. On the ThieAudio, it's just fat. This thing is just a lot fatter. It's got a lot of grooves. It's like a deformed peanut. This thing is just simpler, fits better, isn't huge. So the Simgot EM6L Phoenix sounds pretty much almost perfect. I mean, I'm sure there's like when I first got them, I thought there was like a slight emphasis in one frequency region that should be pulled down a little bit just to sound a little bit less forward, but in comparison, the Hype2, I don't even know what that shit says. This thing, God, it's this big. It fits in my ear, but it's just not as comfortable. So let's look at the frequency response, okay? Let's look at the frequency response, okay, guys? Okay, so we got the Simgot EM6L and the ThieAudio, okay? Let's look at this. So this scoop right here, this peak right here, I think it's that peak. I think that peak, maybe this peak too. You've got this these frequencies poking out at you in the high frequencies on the Hype2, in the high frequencies that I just find really fatiguing. It takes away from the musicality, the smoothness, and it just like the whole time you're listening to something, you're just kind of getting poked with these frequencies that, I find it fatiguing. And then we got this scoop here that completely, makes music, and it sounds like sucked out. It sounds like, you could argue that it sounds more clear in the other frequencies, but it just sounds like extremely thin in this region. And then you kind of get smacked with this higher frequency sub-bass emphasis. So this scoop here shouldn't be here, and it actually surprisingly, at 200 hertz here, surprisingly affects the sound in a bad, thin, anemic way. Again, if you ask somebody, does it sound more clear? Yeah, it does, but it also doesn't sound good, Like, wow, there's no warmth, there's no body to the sound. It just sounds sucked out and empty and lifeless, Like, but it sounds more clear. Like, that's not a good argument if it sounds so fucking bad, So you go to the Simgot. The treble is a lot more smooth and transparent. No, big pokes. So when you're listening to it, it sounds very smooth, very clean, not fatiguing. It just sounds a hell of a lot better, to be honest with you. I'm actually quite surprised by how fatiguing the Hype2 is in that region. And then, the full-bodied bass, it surprisingly adds a lot to the musicality, the ability to hear these frequencies. I'm surprised by how much it actually adds. So the end result is, I was trying to play devil's advocate yesterday and saying, look at these graphs. They look almost identical. I'm not going to nitpick it. It's more about taste at this point. Like, I was trying to be nice. I wasn't, I was trying to make a review that was open-minded, giving these things a chance. They do sound different. Maybe that's all you're looking for, is something that sounds a little bit different. But when you're paying, 3 times as much, and they're big and bulky and uncomfortable over a period of time, what's funny is I know that there's a lot of people that sit around and hype up, no pun intended, ThieAudio, for example. Like, there was this guy who was belligerently hyping this stuff up and thinking it was the best thing since sliced bread, because I guess he's got nothing better going on. And this is what it is. Like, the Hype2, this like anemic. I mean, I'm honestly, when I look at this, I'm actually shocked by such a strong effect of this 200 hertz mud cut. I honestly, I wanted to. One of the best things about having differently tuned microphones and differently tuned IEMs is you get a chance to experience what these tunings actually sound like, and you can decide whether you like it or not, and learn from it, and fine tune a target that you enjoy listening to without any problems. And the Simgot EM6L alleviates a lot of the problems that are on the Hype2. The lumpy, funky treble that just kind of pokes out at you. The thin, anemic mid bass that just kind of takes all the soul and body and musicality out of the bass and just turns it into this blown out subwoofer, anemic, lifeless, empty piece of crap, to be honest with you. So I really wanted to try the Hype2 to get what are these people clamoring for exactly, and this is terrible. This is god awful. The Hype2, like, this is not good. This is again, and what's sad about this is they did a good job trying to tune this thing. Like, look at the frequency response. It's got a full 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. The overall tuning is so close to the Simgot. They tried really hard to tune this thing, and these little problems make me just want to throw it in the trash, to be honest with you, because in comparison, the EM6L just don't have these problems, and when I use these stupid ThieAudios, I'm just, there's no musicality, there's just fatigue in the treble, the bass is uninspiring and lifeless and crap, and then I put in the EM6L and they're much more comfortable and they just sound musical, and I'm enjoying what I'm listening to. I'm not distracted by treble lumps and a anemic bass, and so I can learn from this now to avoid this 200 hertz mud cut at all cost. And that gives this lifeless mid bass and this weird punchy sub bass kind of sound that just doesn't sound right at all. It's surprising how much of an effect this has. And when people hype it up, in the community, oh, this thing is muddy, your DT990s are muddy, your EM6L is muddy, just think of Sean Olive trying to desperately hold on to his, footing in this crap so that he can buy Teslas and wine, at your expense. And so this is the reason why you don't want to be a follower and be hyped up about shit. And So all these people who sit around all day saying ThieAudio Hype2 is amazing, it's a lumpy, fatiguing, treble, anemic piece of crap. And you, for the 1/3 the cost, you can get something that sounds a hell of a lot better, that's more comfortable. So get the Simgot EM6L. This thing is much better. Okay, so I hope you guys learn from this. I definitely did. Again, this is all subjective, I guess. It's all subjective. But anyway, I think I'll see you guys later.